It's been a pretty exciting past couple weeks. Shout out to Gage again for hopping on with me and Jared. But since that video, there's been a lot on my mind, especially because we've had girls tryouts for the younger age groups. And so I kind of wanted to just hop on and talk about foundation of mentality. And after a conversation I had with my girls team the other day, I kind of wanted to just elaborate on the ideas that I had during my quick huddle with them. And hopefully, if you're a volleyball athlete with similar goals and building a foundation during your volleyball career, or if you're further along your volleyball journey, just a couple things to maybe think about and reevaluate. Or if you're an athlete coming from another sport, I think that these are things that are definitely applicable to everything. But yeah, so kind of just jumping into it, the gist of the huddle that I had with my kids was you need to work harder. And this is the first time where I officially, since tryouts, have talked to these kids um, as their coach. I've met a lot of them before. I've met a lot of them last year because this is Jared's team from last year. A couple new kids. But the foundation I wanted to set for them as one of their new coaches is you need to work harder. And this is something that I bring up to all the teams that I coach to set the standard. I'm big on creating the standard for a team and to get everyone to buy into upholding the standard for themselves, but also for each other. And so, just to kind of elaborate on that idea of working hard, I kind of want to define that really quickly. For me, working hard isn't just showing up to practice. To me, that's the bare minimum. That might sound kind of extreme. Everybody is showing up to practice. We have thousands of teams across the country, across the world, that are coming into the gym, getting their touches, and then going home. And so, what can you do as an athlete to separate yourself from the crowd and to truly take the next step? A few points I have written down. The first one I have written down is, in my opinion, the most important, and that's being intentional. Have goals that you want to emphasize and get better at, separate from the things that your coach wants to work on, right? That doesn't mean you're pushing for your own practice plan, right? But that means that when you guys are working on specific skills, those are the ones that you're buying into, right? Whether that's passing or serving, some things to kind of hold as goal markers for you at the end of the week or at the end of the month or at the end of the season, right? Did you get better at this skill today? And if not, what are you doing to get better at it the next practice? The second point kind of comes off of being intentional, and that's getting more touches, right? For a lot of people, that might be a little bit difficult given gym time availability, financial circumstances, all that stuff. There are a lot of things you can do at home too. And we'll try our best to maybe throw together a couple videos on some home drills that you guys can do at home, but get more touches, right? Get more comfortable with how the volleyball feels in your hand, what your platform can do, getting better at setting, all of those things. A lot of it can be done at home with a ball and a wall, right? Or if your parents are there, ask your parents for some help too. But be intentional about those things too, right? Don't just pick up a volleyball just to pick up a volleyball, but have an idea behind your training. And if you have any questions, ask your coaches, right? Or reach out to us if you guys have questions on those things, and we can maybe throw together a couple drills that you can maybe work on. Footwork is also huge when it comes to working at home, right? A lot of the kids that I've coached, if you guys spend 5, 10, 15 minutes working on your split step, working on your setter footwork, working on your hitting approach, right? All of these things that might be difficult during practice. Yes, sure, you can blame your coach for not being able to, fit those into your practice times, but you have 2 feet and space at home to be able to go do those things, right? And that all goes back to being intentional about what your goals really are. And then my third point is putting time into strength training. When I was in high school, I'm not the tallest player. I'm 5'6" on a good day, maybe. And my training regimen wasn't great. I did a little bit of plyo. I lifted pretty heavy for my size, I guess, but I had no idea what I was really doing, right? I just lifted as heavy as I could, as consistently as I could. But making time to do some plyo or to do some compound lifts to strengthen some ligaments, right? Or explosive movements to work on your vertical. Like I said earlier, practice and getting touches and all those things are the minimum because everyone else is doing it. I think now, as there's more information being put out there on social media, on YouTube, all this stuff, everyone is slowly starting to come to the realization that at a young age, you also have to start doing strength training, right? It's now who's going to be the most athletic while also having the best technical ability. And so for parents, it's huge for you to get up to date with what volleyball training looks like, active recovery, mobility, and stretching, all those things, right? I'm talking to the parents right now, but it's also for the kids to understand and take responsibility for too. Do the things off of the court to help supplement and keep you on track for when you're on the court. And my final point here for working harder is to watch more film. There was a clip from a couple weeks ago of Ariel on the Out of System podcast, If You Can't Handle the Heat, where she brought up the point that these kids now that are playing can only name a few athletes that are in the volleyball space right now. Right? Of course, you have your big hitters like Moni and Maddie Skinner, Lexi Rodriguez, all these big names because of social media, which is fantastic. But other than those big superstars, there's not a lot of household volleyball names. But we'll touch on that when I hop on with our next guest, which is going to be such a sick video. Going back to my point, what that means is that there's not that many kids watching film. I think now with where the landscape of social media is, kids watch their own film and other people's film, and all they're seeing are highlights and bounce balls or roofs or crazy plays. Going back to the first point of this video, you have to watch film with intention. For some people, that's really, really difficult. It's really boring to sit there and watch all the plays that you're involved in, or plays where you're not even on the floor, where you're making mistakes. And I get that. But why is watching film important? In my opinion, it's to see what you're doing really good at, right? And to double down on those things, while also finding the holes in your game to be able to patch up and ultimately get it to where you want it to be. Those are the things that you need to be thinking about when watching film is, where are my holes? Where are my strengths? And then ultimately having a list of questions you can ask your coach, and having a list, going back to having intention in the gym, right? Is if you see holes in your game, you're going to be working on these things the next day at practice, or constantly trying to get to that point. All those things that I talked about starts with being intentional. I'm not saying that you're not going to progress, right? Because there's a lot of kids that are just naturally talented. But I promise you right now, those who are naturally talented, if they're not working hard, if they're not doubling down on their talent, putting in the extra reps and doing all these things with intention, there's going to be a kid who might be slightly less talented than they are that is willing to put in that work. And that's one thing that I want my young athletes to learn right away, is that if you're not willing to put in that work, someone else is going to go take it from you. But yeah, just to wrap things up, being a young athlete shouldn't be an excuse. In my opinion, it's a really big blessing, because you have time to set your foundation early, right? Focus on these things and work on them as you progress through your career, as you progress through your different age groups in the club scene. Work hard to outwork everybody else. And that should be the foundation and the mentality that you bring every single day in practice, every single day when you're recovering at home, when you're watching film, when you're in the gym strength training. Don't just do the bare minimum by coming to practice. Have these things dialed in early, because when it's time to take the next step, you're never going to regret that you tried too hard, but it's always possible that you'll regret not trying enough.